Well, obviously after the Kirk assassination, which I've got to say still has rattled me quite deeply, that was sick. I think it was mostly just the fact that you saw the footage from every single angle, and unlike the JFK assassination, which happened so long ago, it's not grainy. It's it's there for everyone to see. That was unsettling on both a personal level and a social one because it really does say something about the American psyche, I think. I don't think that this is a very common occurrence in any other developed nation. I think that this is a unique quirk of America, and I think that that really boils down to something cultural there. I know that there's going to be a bunch of people that say that this is because of poverty or wealth inequality or pick your reason. I think that you could point to a bunch of other countries that have far worse wealth inequality, that have far worse levels of poverty, that have far worse levels of you name it, and they will not have the same bloodlust that the United States has. This has been an ongoing characteristic of America, you've got to say right since its inception, because we're talking about hundreds of years of political assassinations at this point. This is a way that the American public seems to think that is a vent or something about how democracy works almost. It's almost as if it's an accepted feature there. And to any American that is a normal human being that saw that and thought, that's really grotesque, can I just say, your suspicions are correct. The rest of the world, especially in developed Western democracies, is not like that. That is really unsettling. Like I said on the main channel, you can find examples of that in every country. I mean, Shinzo Abe is a perfect example. But these are rare. These are historically held up as sort of this watermark of what a psycho that guy is. But in the United States, it just happens so frequently that, to be honest, I think that everyone will forget about this in a couple of weeks. It'll just be, there was 5 or 6 other school shootings after that, and it'll just keep going. It is uniquely American. It's sort of just the same thing as like, we like hot dogs here. They like political assassinations, or at least that there is a subsect of society that does. And you can see it in the comments afterwards that you have all sorts of people for all sorts of reasons justifying it, which I find very unsettling. Deeply, deeply unsettling. Anyway, I started reading about it, and this is why this is on the self-help channel, because I immediately started thinking, what is the mindset behind somebody that does something like that? It's pretty much what you would expect. I mean, think about the movie Taxi Driver. It's that. It's that type of person. It is somebody who is a loner. It's somebody who feels like they've been wronged by the system, and they come up with any interpretation that they like. I mean, just because they targeted somebody on a political spectrum that you don't like doesn't necessarily mean that your political spectrum is justified by any means by this, because you can pick dozens of others that aren't. I mean, for instance, John Wilkes Booth really empathized with the landowners in the South, and that's why he assassinated Lincoln. And then you have, I think it was Garfield was his name? Anyway, that guy was killed because he was denied frequently a position in the presidential cabinet that he thought he was entitled to. This is at the core of it, and there is this study that was done by the Secret Service, commissioned by a bunch of psychologists, I think in the 80s, and they did profiles of these people. And so you can guess, even before the trial has commenced, within, it looks close to 95% accuracy, that they will fit this profile. That they will be somebody who has tried a bunch of ventures in their life, has failed, externalizes that blame on some systemic problem, and wants that to be their statement of, I'm going out with a bang. And the reason that they are going out with the bang is that they feel that the spotlight should have been on them, and the spotlight wasn't on them, and then they come up with some kind of political rationalization before preceding that, and that's just very loose, because when you go and sit one-to-one with these people as a psychologist, it becomes very apparent very quickly that it's like, the world has wronged me. It is a classic trait in every single story. We've talked about it on this channel before. Villains are always somebody who feels victimized, and then they take it out in sick, depraved ways. That is the usual storyline of a villain when you go and explore their character arc. That is there for a reason. Because what they are saying is, everybody in life feels frustrated about them not getting what they want. But usually they have healthier ways of externalizing that feeling. The classic one is sport, for instance. Everybody just lets out all their aggression on the sport field. Whether they're playing it, whether they're watching it and yelling in the field, or they listen to angry music. This is why, for instance, a lot of people that listen to death metal, and this is not a good example because you can find people that are murderous in that field, but a lot of the time, this is the psychological profile of these people. Usually they're quite thoughtful, nice nerds, and they let out all their aggression with aggressive music, and then they just get back to business. These people specifically brood. They sit in their rooms by themselves, getting more and more psychotic, thinking about how they've been screwed over, how it's everybody else's fault except theirs, and then they go out and do this. And the reason that they do it to a political figure is because they think that the political figure, first off, this is why in this day and age it's even worse with the internet. The internet's made everything worse, profoundly better in other ways, but one of the things that it did make bad, and this is something that you can see when I've hung out with other political commentators, I feel, again, that when I'm in Australia, I'm very lucky about this. We do have our sick weirdos online that I've been very, very privy to over the years, I can assure you. And they do have very similar traits to this. Very similar traits. Because obviously, as a political commentator, you are going to get people from all sorts of political perspectives putting their reason for why you suck online in their heads. And obviously, they're always going to be in the comments, aren't they? Because this is their sort of sport venting. It's a little bit healthier than what happens with these people, you've got to admit. But it comes from the same source. It's always from the same source. They feel wronged, and they come up with X excuse, and then they go and do that. And that is them letting out all of that pent-up rage. The reason that they go after political figures is because when you have gone after a political figure, they feel connected to them because they start obsessing over them, and they think in some instances that they have some sort of connection with them. Even if they've never met them in their entire lives, they feel that they have a connection with them because they've gone off the deep end. They are truly twisted individuals that can't really differentiate from reality or not anymore. I think the average person, even if they have what you would say online as a parasocial relationship, they would look at the relationship that you have online and realize this is not real. This is a bunch of digits in front of me, and they get on with their lives. These people don't. It is that combination that is happening there. Which leads me to my point that a lot of these people that endlessly think, and this is why I find this line of thought so detestable, these are all people that give up any responsibility for their own outcomes of their life. Everything. They're always just a victim of the system. They will be in the comments of this, obviously. This is going to anger them massively. This is the thing that angers them. This is why they hate this channel so much. You see it constantly being a target of derision on Reddit, and it is because self-help is basically based off the principle that it's up to you in life. Every single moment of your life, you are making decisions. And just because you don't think that you are where you are in life is no excuse for, oh, well, that's fine. I'm just going to externalize everything. It's everybody else's fault but mine. This is the end result of that level of thinking. I think also marred in the sick, violent culture that is the United States, which I've got to say, I have met a lot of sane, rational Americans in my life. I just feel sorry for them for living in that environment. That is something that is culturally unique to that place. And, you know, it would be to greater sociologists that actually have a degree in this to discuss that point. Oh God, it is deeply unsettling, especially because it's a superpower that you're looking at. Um, yeah, look, a common trait that I found very interesting in all of it was the fact that they feel like they're massive failures. This is all a matter of interpretation. Everything in your life you can look at as being, I'm a failure. I have met extremely successful people. I've read about extremely successful people. We're talking monetarily, we're talking about having the perfect family, living a perfect life, having a great job, whatever you personally deem is success in your head. They still feel like failures. That is because of the interpretation that they have of their life circumstances. This is why I think it's very important to be into some form of self-help, because you are, at its core, at the absolute core of self-help is pretty much, I have a goal in life and I'm going to move towards that goal. And even if I don't achieve that goal, I'll probably get closer to it, or it'll veer me off into a different direction that will make my life better. And in the process of going towards that goal, I will be facing obstacles and setbacks, and that will be distinguishing my character. But I think it's also important to note that every single day you're having wins. Every single day there are wins. And that is why it's very important to journal at the end of the day. This is the progress that I made in my life. I'm telling you, the extreme example of not doing that is what you saw there. That's where it goes. It goes to a very dark place. If you feel like a failure, that's where it can lead. And feeling like a failure is entirely up to you. We always laugh at, say, I don't know, incel culture or extreme woke soys or something constantly complaining in life, and we sit there and laugh at this regularly on channels like this. But this is where they're coming from. And that's because of that specific mindset that they have. Now, obviously, there's going to be some people that are just so mentally ill and deranged that there's nothing, and obviously this video is not going to speak to these people. I'm saying that going throughout this life and thinking, everything, I am just a complete victim of external circumstances. There's nothing that I can do in my life, and everything that I've ever done in my life is a failure. This is what it leads to. This is why every single time I look at the political fringes of even Australia, it's obviously not this bad, but they are awful people constantly. And it is because they eventually start turning into villains. They find a way to justify pain and terror and nastiness and vindictiveness against their enemies. And there's nothing else. That's it. It's just trying to crush the opposition because it's the only thing that sort of makes them feel significant. It's the only other thing that makes them feel like, oh, my life has some sense of purpose or something. There is so many ways to give your life a sense of purpose that is constructive. And I think that if you don't consciously start harboring that, it starts becoming very destructive very quickly. This is mental hygiene 101. You need to count your victories in life. In fact, if you do have some from today, I'd just like you to ping them out in the comments. I want you to start getting into the habit of this, to notice that, no, it's not all that bad. Every single day I am going somewhere in some direction, and there are things that I can do to make myself go in that direction. There's things that I can do. They're immediately within my power right now. This is the same reason that I was talking about doomerism with Zoomers. This is a bad mindset to have. It's a mindset of societal-wide mental illness, and it's horrendous. Anyway, that's why I think it's very important for you to start listing these things out. And as that psychology analysis taken up by the Secret Service in the 80s proves, that's really all that distinguishes people in life. People that feel like that they've had some wins, and people that just convince themselves that they've never had any wins at all. Take with that what you will.